Why time speeds up sometimes and slows down other times. In 1962, a French geologist walked into a pitch-black cave and didn't come out for 2 months. No clock, no sunlight, just darkness. His name was Michel Siffre, and he was originally there to study glaciers. But at some point he asked himself a different question. Without a clock, without sunlight, without any reference point at all, what would the human mind actually do? There was only one way to find out. He made himself the test subject. For 63 days, he lived underground. Every time he ate, slept, or woke up, he called his team on the surface to report it. They logged the real time. He counted the days based on his own sense of how much time had passed. When he finally emerged, he asked his team a simple question. How many days has it been? His answer was 25. The real answer was 33. Siffre's brain had lost more than a third of real time, and this wasn't a malfunction. It was an exaggerated version of something that happens inside every one of our brains, every single day, just in much smaller doses. Because time doesn't work the way you think it does, the clock moves at the same speed. Your brain never measures it that way. Everyone has felt this. As a kid, one summer vacation felt endless. Now an entire year disappears before you can blink. A boring meeting can feel like it lasts for hours, but try to remember that meeting afterward and almost nothing is left. And here's where it actually gets strange. Time while you're living it and time while you're remembering it run on two completely different sets of rules. Let's start with living it. In 2007, neuroscientist David Eagleman wanted to test this directly. He dropped volunteers into a free fall, 31 meters down onto a safety net. During the fall, a device on their wrist flashed numbers faster than the eye should be able to read. The logic was simple. If time genuinely slows down during fear, subjects should be able to read those impossibly fast numbers. They couldn't. But when asked how long the fall lasted, every single person overestimated it by about 36%. So time wasn't actually slowing down. Their brains were recording more detail during the fear. And later, when they replayed that moment, more detail simply felt like more time. That's the key to how time gets measured in memory. Not duration, density. Your brain doesn't have a clock. Your brain has a density of memory, and it reconstructs time after the fact by looking at how dense that memory is. Which brings us back to childhood. Why does a single summer day at age 7 feel longer than an entire year does now? Because at 7, almost everything is new. A new playground, a new taste, a new friend, a new fear. Your brain records each one separately, in detail. At 35, an ordinary Tuesday has almost nothing new in it. Same road, same office, same routine. Your brain doesn't even bother recording it because it already knows what's coming. Psychologist William James noticed this back in 1890, decades before anyone had the neuroscience to prove it. To James, time filled with routine feels empty and shrinks in retrospect. Time filled with novelty expands in retrospect. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. In 2005, psychologist Peter Mengen ran the numbers. For a 5-year-old, 1 year is 20% of their entire life. For a 50-year-old, that same single year is only 2% of theirs. Mengen called this proportional time theory. Every new year you live shrinks mathematically against the sum of every year that came before it. A year at 50 feels roughly a tenth the size of a year at 5, because relative to the total length of your life, it actually is. Here's what that means in practice. If you're reading this at 40, statisticians estimate you've already experienced somewhere around 90% of your subjectively felt life, not your actual life. The part of it your brain bothered to record. The other 10% is still ahead of you, but it will feel like it's flying by because your brain has already decided most of it isn't worth remembering in detail. Sit with that for a second. 90% gone, and you're not even at the halfway mark on the calendar. But that's only half the story. If it were pure math, time would accelerate the same smooth amount every single year. It doesn't. Some years suddenly slow back down. A move, a breakup, a new city, a new job. And time expands again, out of nowhere. Because when novelty comes back, the brain starts recording again. And here's the uncomfortable question that raises. If your sense of time depends entirely on novelty, does a life buried in routine actually get lived for less time? In 2019, a research team at the University of California found that people whose lives were packed with intense experiences, frequent travel, frequent changes in city, job, or relationships, rated their own lifespan as retrospectively longer, despite being the exact same chronological age as everyone else. So the calendar stays the same, but the lived time your memory constructs is not. Which raises the real question. Maybe time never actually lived out there, in the clock, on the calendar. Maybe it only ever lived in here, in your brain, as a record of how much attention you were paying. When Michel Siffre climbed out of that cave, he hadn't just lost track of time. He'd unknowingly lost a piece of his own life, because in the darkness, with no novelty at all, there was almost nothing left to record. Those 33 days took up in his memory barely the space of a few. And you're living a much smaller version of the exact same thing every single day. Every routine day quietly gets erased from your memory without you noticing. Every new day leaves a mark. The clock keeps running at the same speed. You don't. If this left you a bit confused, that was actually exactly the point. Subscribe because there's more to come. Share your thoughts with me and the community in the comments. Also, if you want the algorithm to actually show you the next video, don't forget to hit the like button right now.